Mike's
Yep.
up.
Yep.
You don't need that.
This is a public hearing on the Rossi Amendment. The Borough Clerk is going to take the minutes.
You won't pick up on the tape unless you talk to Mike.
I can take
There's
this.
another one. Let's try this better.
How about this?
All right. This is a public hearing on the Rossi Amendment. The Borough Clerk is going to be recording everything, so we ask that you use the microphone.
Every time you get to that spot, it's
You use one of these microphones, and you're welcome to sit if you'd like, and just make sure you're on tape so we can record it in the minutes. The minutes will be transcribed and will be available for the, again, for the DEP, which is the sole purpose of this, but also for the public once they're transcribed. All right, so with that, Christine Bowers, the borough engineer, she'll open up the public hearing.
Good evening. It's now 6:07. We will begin the public hearing in compliance with NJAC 7:36-25.3H. There will be a public comment period at the end of my little synopsis. Therefore, we ask that you please hold any questions or comments until that time. This is a hearing for an amendment to the Borough of Red Bank recreational open space inventory, a hearing called the Rossi, specifically for Block 8, Lot 1, and Block 8, Lot 4. Notice of this hearing has been published in the Asbury Park Press, on the borough's website, and mailed to all persons who own land within 200 feet of the subject properties. The borough has formally filed a request with the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection Green Acres Program proposing to amend the Borough of Red Bank recreational open space inventory by removing a portion of Block 8, Lot 1, commonly known as the Maple Avenue parking lot, and Block 8, Lot 4, commonly known as the library parking lot. I'm going to show you Exhibit A. Exhibit A is an aerial image of the site which identifies the subject block and lots.
Can you all see it?
Not when you sit in front of it.
Wait, that's better.
That's good.
Exhibit A?
Yes.
Block 4, Lot 1. This is the parking lot area for, on Maple Avenue. This is Lot 101. This is Block 4, Lot 4. Excuse me, Block 8, Lot 4. This is the library parking lot, and this is 4.01. These are the two parcels. There is a parcel in between that is privately owned.
The subject of this public hearing is specifically only for lots 1 and lots 4. The borough has received several notices from Green Acres indicating that the parking lots, which are currently located on both lots previously mentioned, can no longer exist as public parking facilities, and that the borough is responsible for enforcing that only park patrons are using the parking areas. As a result, the borough has formally filed a request with Green Acres to modify the Rossi to remove portions of both lots 1 and 4 from the inventory. It is the borough's position that both lots were purchased for the purpose of providing ancillary use by the public library. Therefore, the subject properties should no longer be held strictly for conservation recreation purposes and are instead held as general parking in support of the library and for public purposes. I have a couple of more exhibits. We're going to show Exhibit B. Exhibit B is a copy of Ordinance 1993-26. There's two highlighted sections on this ordinance. The first section indicates that it's acquisition of a portion of the property located at 95 West Front Street, Block 8, Lot 4, on the official tax map of the Borough of Red Bank, for the ancillary use by the public library of the Borough of Red Bank. The second highlighted section states acquisition of property located at Block 8, Lot 1 and 4 on the official tax map of the Borough of Red Bank, commonly known as West Front Street and 90 West Front Street respectively, for the ancillary use of such property by the public library of the borough and the borough, including the demolition of structures located thereon. Also included, I have, I think C on the other side. All right. Exhibit C is a copy of Resolution 93-214, which itemizes the project for acquisition of 96 West Front Street, specifically for library purposes.
What year was that?
1993.
Resolution 93-214.
And Exhibit D is Bond Ordinance 1994-5, highlighting construction of a parking lot on municipal land of Block 8, Lot 4 of the official tax map of the borough to be used for public purposes. This information, along with several other documents, was submitted by the Borough of Red Bank to the Green Acres Program in support of this requested Rossi Amendment, and is available for public inspection at the Borough of Red Bank municipal offices, has been also on the borough website, and is available at the Green Acres Program office. Green Acres has reviewed these documents and has determined in its February 26, 2013 letter that the situation appears to meet the bona fide error standard for Rossi amendments in accordance with NJAC 7:36-25.3D, and agrees with the borough that the listing of the entire Lot 1 and the listing of lots 4 and 4.01 appear to be in error. Now, there has been a lot of misinformation circulating, and I want to take a brief moment to clarify the record. The portion of Block 8, Lot 1, the Maple Avenue parking lot, which is proposed to be removed from the Rossi, is the parking lot area and a small buffer for maintenance purposes. I think what we were proposing was about a foot beyond where the parking lot curb ends. The remaining property, which would be Lot 1.01, and the remaining portion of Lot 1 would remain on the Rossi. What that means is that the borough is actually going to have to subdivide Lot 1. So there will be a new lot created. The property is not being sold. It is not being turned into condos or any other combination thereof. The parking lots will remain parking lots for public purposes. Modification of the Rossi will not change public access to the waterfront. What it will do is allow the borough to continue to use the property for public parking and the support of the library as it was originally intended and originally purchased.
So, brings it to my bailiwick. In February 26, as Christine stated, we received a letter from DEP acknowledging the information that we had gathered. We actually got our letter in 2011 saying we should restrict the parking because it should be used for park purposes. The fact is that the specific ordinances authorizing the purchase of these properties specifically stated that the purchase of both properties was for the purpose of providing parking for the library or library purposes. Red Bank added the properties to the Rossi at various times, and as much as the properties met the definition of municipal open space. According to a review of resolutions and ordinances adopted since acquiring the properties, the placement of each property on the Rossi apparently was not officially authorized by any resolution or ordinance. The Borough of Red Bank has not spent $1 of Green Acres money on either property. In fact, the Borough of Red Bank has not spent $1 on the Maple Avenue property for the purpose of creating a park. In fact, when the borough acquiesced to placement of a sign or benches on the property that were donated, at the location, and specifically the sign, the word park was specifically not included on the sign. When the properties were placed on the Rossi, the borough did not ever envision that the use of one municipal parcel, which never received any Green Acres funding, could affect any agreement or payments associated with specific applications and approvals for Green Acres funds for development of other properties. Furthermore, the borough was not aware of and never envisioned that a parcel of land that the borough purchased solely for the purpose of providing parking or support to the library and solely paid for with borough funds could have its intended use restricted for something other than that for which it was intended. Red Bank has no intention of selling the properties. If it did, it would have declared said property surplus by resolution, authorized the sale by ordinance, which is required with a public hearing, and no such authorization or ordinance has ever been drafted or proposed. I know of no appraisals of these properties. The borough has never paid for an appraisal of these properties. The property at the foot of Maple Avenue was never appraised by the borough. It was never offered for sale. Although one council person opined that the sale of vacant, underused properties, of which these were listed, would benefit the town by returning same to taxable status. The majority of the council was not in favor of selling the property, and it's never been raised since. The library holds a deed restriction stating the library property cannot be used for public assembly. It does not make sense to draw people to a location whose main use access is deed restricted, and furthermore, that the parking that was purchased for the library cannot be used by people accessing the library. The urgency is due to the most recent letter from DEP. The most recent letter from DEP, which asks for us to state our actions because they have corresponded with us in the past and they wanted us to finalize this issue. In fact, that letter expanded to include another property in town for which there were Green Acres expended and received, and that's a separate issue. The only reason for this hearing, the only reason the borough desires to remove these properties from the roster is to remove the restriction on parking, which is explicitly contrary to the intent of the governing body when the properties were purchased in the first place. So, if there's any questions for the engineer or myself, we'll take questions. If there's any questions, not statements, just questions.
I have a question.
Come on, Frank.
Yeah, please come up and use the mic so you'll be on camera.
My name is Robert Moss, M-O-S-S. I am the Green Acres Issues Coordinator for the New Jersey chapter of the Sierra Club. We're going fast here. You said there was a need to subdivide. Some of the documentation said the borough did not want to subdivide because of the cost. Is that no longer the case?
Our initial intent when we submitted to Green Acres was for the entire parcels because that's how they were purchased. However, in correspondence with DEP, they felt it best if we subdivided the lot to keep just the parking lot.
So it will be subdivided, surveyed, and so on.
Correct.
Well,
Well,
let me correct that. The council is not taking action to approve subdivision. The DEP is saying that they would encourage us to do so. So in our discussions, when we go back to the DEP with the results of this hearing, we will discuss with them under what conditions they would approve the Rossi Amendment. What we would like to do at the very least is maintain some buffer to maintain the parking lot. And any of that would have to be approved by council.
actually, I think it is true, they may not absolutely require that. Again, Ms. Ballard, placing the parcels on the Rossi was not authorized, you said?
There was no, I believe, no resolution.
When this first came up, I went back beyond the point that we purchased the properties, checking the minutes and the ordinances. I find no resolutions authorizing, or no action of the council authorizing that these be placed on the Rossi.
Well, then, do we know who did it? The Rossi is a recorded deed. It's like a deed. It's a declaration of
Rossi,
commons.
well, the Rossi is a list that the DEP, the borough submits to the DEP of open space. It's a list, and it's signed by the mayor and/or, I don't know exactly who signs it, but a borough official signs it. Well, what I looked for was governing body action approving the Rossi.
I guess I have to respond to that during the comment period.
I believe there was something from the administrator at the time that just said perhaps we should add these lots. I have to find it exactly, but I believe that's where it was.
I think the comment is it was done administratively, but not by action of the governing body. Is the correct comment.
What I meant, I'll respond during the comment period to your statement that a Rossi is nothing but a list.
No, I'm saying what I saw was a list with signatures from borough officials. I don't see that as a recorded deed.
You can look it up. The 2011 one. It's easy to find on the internet.
Hello?
What's to prevent, legally to prevent the council, as soon as this, if suppose this is approved, what's to prevent the council from doing all these things that have not been done so far, the authorizing the sale, appraising and so on? What legal restrictions are on the council?
It's no more than putting on the Rossi or taking it off the Rossi. We have to have a public hearing. We have to go through another process to sell or discharge public property. We have to have a resolution authorizing that we get an appraisal. We have to get the appraisal. We have to take action either by authorization of an auction or bid. We have to take the bid. Then we have to have a public hearing to dispose of the property in an ordinance.
Right.
So there's a process.
There's a process.
Equal to this or even more complicated.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
Well, I just want to start off with the advertisement, because I think the advertisement is defective. And let me tell you why.
Can I respond to that?
Sure.
This is a standard public hearing notice advertisement that was sent to Green Acres. They modified it, we sent it back to them, and they stamped their seal of approval, and this is their standard form
Okay.
advertisement.
Well, this is
Because
my,
they have very specific rules on what you can say in a public
Okay.
hearing notice.
well, this is my concern. In the advertisement, it says removing a portion, Lot 8, Lot 1, which is .25 acres. And then in parentheses, it has Maple Avenue parking lot. Well, the Block 1, as you can see here, is a lot of the land, okay? Here's the parking lot, okay, and then here's the path to the water. So if you would, you know, when you say you're removing a portion, and then you've got the parking lot in there, it doesn't say, and the open space, or the park, or the land portion. So people think it's just the parking lot you're trying to remove. I think it's a little misleading. That's what, you know, and then also where it says, you know, Block 8, Lot 4, library parking lot, again, you have a little bit of parking lot in the front, I don't know if everybody can see that, and a ton of land in the back. And in here you can see it better too. Okay, this is all one, all right, and this is 1.0. And this much is parking lot for the library, and all of this is land. And if you all remember, that's where we wanted to put the community garden, but the council wouldn't let us.
So the question is,
So the question is, how, in these advertisements, it just says the parking lots, and it omits the fact that there is land attached to this, that is open space, park, however you want to consider it, but you're removing land.
The lots in question are the lots that are described in the DEP letters. We put all the lot numbers on, block and lot numbers on the notes. What we're having a hearing on is what we want to do is remove the restriction on the parking lots. Now, if the lot is enclosed on the library parking lot, on the library lot, that lot was purchased for the purpose of the library. There are other factors with regard to the library, including the deed restriction, with regard to the grounds and the open space.
How does the library deed affect 94 Front Street?
Access to 94 Front Street would have to be from the library property.
Well, the library has a side yard, you could walk to the back.
Well, and/or people could access from the rear property of 94 Front Street to the library. So there are issues. What we're trying to do is remove the restrictions from the parking lots. And our discussion with the DEP is that, based on what we submitted, they agree that there may be an error. And they have asked or suggested that we modify our proposal with regard to Maple Avenue to reduce as much of the open space as we can from removal.
Right.
We just want to maintain a buffer along the north edge of the parking lot so that we can maintain the parking lot.
Okay, well, why, excuse me, Mr. Sickles, but when you put in that overnight parking job and you put in that parking lot and you curbed it, because it was never curbed, it was never really paved, you left a 15-foot buffer to the east of that parking lot, and you've got a ton of buffer to the south of that parking lot because of all of Hovnanian's riprap that has fallen into the parking lot. That could be moved.
And the question?
The question is, why would you take part of the park property to the north for a buffer when...
Well, first of all, it is not the borough, it is not a park property. It is open space. We have a buffer to the east, as you said. We have a buffer to the south. We will want to have a buffer to the north. Not as large as the lot line allows, but we still would like to have a buffer. We put back what was there. We put back 12 parking spaces. For us to expand that lot, and this is subject to a different public hearing, for us to expand that lot would require DEP permits, which we did not want to do, and we had permission from DEP to put back a 12-space parking lot. Okay, questions?
Excuse me, Sam.
I have a
I just wanted to clarify hers. You, go ahead.
question.
Stephen Hecht, Branch Avenue. I want to be sure I understand restrictions. My understanding is that the restriction on the parking lot adjacent to the library is that it can only be used for the library. Is that correct?
No.
All right, what are the Rossi restrictions then that we're trying to eliminate by this amendment?
I have that.
I have it right in front of me. I'm looking for the quote. You have it highlighted?
Are the restrictions to do with money?
With money?
Yeah, with fees for parking?
No.
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 The restriction is that the borough would have to police the parking lot and make sure that anyone using those parking lots was only going to park and not anywhere else.
Well, there is no park, as I understand, but they have to go. The borough would have.
This is what I'm quoting, exactly
Okay.
what Green Acres.
But I want to try and understand it in, not in state language, but in Red Bank language. The borough would have to police that the library parking lot is only used by library patrons?
No,
No.
It's
No.
not used by.
the lot is only used for people going to the water.
The library lot is
Both
only used?
lots,
Both lots
both
are
lots.
only used by people going to the water?
Correct.
Okay. Well, that seems to me to come out of nowhere. I mean, I just don't understand that. So the library lot, if it stays on the Rossi, can no longer be used for the library, but needs to be used by people who want access to the river.
Correct.
And what are the implications of charging of putting meters in Lot 1, or at the foot of Maple Avenue?
None. You're allowed to charge parking on properties that are on your open space inventory.
Okay, but you have to be sure that they're only used. Okay, and
Let me just add to that. You can charge for parking, for any parking related to the open space. However, the revenue for the parking has to go toward the support of the open space.
so if it were to stay on the Rossi, those funds would have to be used for whatever they have to be used for.
Yes.
Exclusively.
Now, that can be done through budgeting. Okay,
Right.
here's the money for open space, we collected this much, did we spend that
Sure.
much on that space?
Okay. All right, well, thank you.
Question?
My name is Kathleen Gazenica. I live at 110 Locust Avenue in Red Bank. I just wanted to clarify what I think Cindy was trying to say. If we look at the lot 1 and 101, and 4 and 4.01, the 1.01 and the 4.01 are pieces of land that are largely underwater or in the intertidal zone. There's hardly any of it that you could stand on at high tide without getting your feet wet. So if you're in fact not intending to take the whole lot 4 and the whole lot 1, you just want a buffer to go next to the parking lots, so that's like, it's a third of the lot here. Wouldn't it make more sense that you subdivide first and then appeal for taking that off? Otherwise, what would be approved is
No.
essentially,
We
Yeah.
have,
Kathy, we put it all on.
Kathleen,
Excuse me, Kathleen, we put it all on. Because for us to go forward and subdivide, survey, and go through the change in the lot, and then not be successful, it would be a wasted expense. So we felt it was more prudent to have the hearing, get the comments to the DEP, and then work on, if there's a modification to be made, then we can make it.
in
But if
fact,
we aren't going to be successful, why would we go through that expense?
okay, well then could you specifically describe the size of the piece that you're trying to take off so that we're all dealing with apples to apples instead of, because I think that's a confusing part for a lot of people here.
yeah.
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 Well, the only question would be with regard to Maple
Like,
Avenue.
could we put a little blue line here that,
The only question would be the north boundary of the Lot 1, and whether that, we bring that north boundary south, closer to the parking lot.
So, Stanley?
Again, and I need to ask everybody also to give their name and address, as Kathleen did too, if you could. Are you done with your questions?
right, but could you specify where that line would be drawn? Because that's really important, because this is taking all of Maple Cove.
Well, again, that decision hasn't been made yet, but, and
Well, then
I
how can
don't,
we
but-
address it if we don't know that?
we'll take your suggestions. I mean, we're looking for a buffer to maintain that north edge. It's certainly not going to be a 25-foot buffer, but it has to be something. I don't know, the DEP may say we want a minimum. Well, then fine, then that's what we'll do.
I think that the people would like to hear a specific number as well.
Why
Any other
is,
question?
Stanley, why do you have to take?
So, switch. In the back. I was pointing to the, okay.